Welcome to Exploring Possibilities. I'm your host, Cheryl Sitz. Since 2012, Mario Rosales of Tech Life Balance and I have been airing inspiring, insightful conversations with all kinds of change agents who are raising the vibration on our planet. It's the intention of our show to explore possibilities and shift perspectives in holistic, spiritual ways. You'll hear how various industry experts discover and share their deepest passions to make a bigger difference in the world. You can subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play. And do me a favor, please come back and rate the show so that new people can find us. We'll introduce our next guest in just a moment.
Have you ever gone to a social media seminar and you have the online experts telling you, get a blog, get a website, get on social media, all this other stuff? By the time you're done with that seminar, that online expert is very good at frying your brain. And the funny part is, you come back home, you get in front of the computer, and you're lost. Hi, I am Mario with Tech Life Balance. I see this all the time. You spend so much money and still don't know what is going on with your online presence. And you probably don't need all of that. Let me go ahead and translate Geek to English for you and show you what you really need, because you don't need it all. You probably only need a few components. You have a great message out there, and I would like to hear it, and I definitely want to help you put it out there. I am Mario Rosales with TechLifeBalance.net. I produce this podcast because I love distributing messages. Let me help you distribute your message.
Hi, it's your host, Cheryl Sitz. And when I'm not doing this podcast, I really enjoy coaching you on how you can have the life you really want. As creators of our own reality, there's a lot of ways that we can block ourselves, hold ourselves back, or just not get really clear on what it is we want. Once we do that, there is no stopping us. I'd love to help you do that. Get in touch with me at CherylSitz.com. We're going to have some fun today. JP Sears, I'm sure you've probably seen him on YouTube. He's an emotional healing coach, YouTuber, author, international teacher, event speaker, world traveler, and curious student of life. He empowers us to live more meaningful lives, often by first laughing at ourselves. In fact, his new book, How to Be Ultra Spiritual, 12 and a half Steps to Spiritual Superiority through Sounds True Publishing, just came out on March the 7th. And you've probably also enjoyed at least one of his videos on the Ultra Spiritual Comedy series. He's had over 100 million views. I know some of those are mine. You'll find him online at awakenwithjp.com. And JP, thank you for being with us today.
Oh, you're very welcome, Cheryl. Thank you for being weird enough to have me.
Oh, it is definitely a delight. And I have a lot of fun on this spiritual path too. So your videos really resonate for me. I have to ask, were you like the class clown? How did you find this humorous offtake to what we're doing right now?
Well, yeah, I was definitely a class clown for sure. And I think there's a couple dimensions to it. One, it was a way of entertaining myself and entertaining people around me. And of course, I get entertained watching people be entertained by me. So, I won't be the first person to say this, but as a kid, I found school incredibly boring. Mm-hmm. So with that, entertaining my friends, entertaining even the teacher at times, and walking the line between amusing the teacher yet not getting in trouble with the teacher, and pushing that line, because I think the further I could push that line and not get in trouble, the more amused the teacher would get. But when I push that line too far and I go from the zone of okay, I'm amusing the teacher to now I'm getting in trouble, I'd certainly spill over that line to an extent. And then, then there's another dimension of the class clowning, where when I started teaching classes in 2006, I started teaching health classes as an independent contractor for what's called the Czech Institute, kind of like a holistic health alternative organization. So I show up and teach these 3-day classes in whatever city around the world. And what I was teaching was really great information that is also really boring information, all about health, nutrition, stress reduction, some emotional healing stuff. Again, I so much respect for that information, but come on, after 3 days, we're just bored with it.
Yeah.
So I started to figure out I can keep people's attention, but more importantly, I can keep my own attention when I'm amusing people. So I figured out, like, when I can say ridiculous things with just a stone cold straight face, dry humor, and it would do a few things in the class. Like first half of the first day, half the class would get that was funny. Third of the class, we'll go in thirds, not halves. Another third of the class would think I'm just absolutely off my rocker. Like, that can't be true. How come he said that? And he has to be serious because he looks serious. And then the third of the class would be very confused. Like, is that guy serious about what he just said? So I just throw in just these little jabs of satirical, dry humor every now and then to keep people on their toes and to amuse me. So I think being able to teach, thousands of hours worth of those classes in front of live audiences where I get very immediate feedback because I can see everybody's face. That was an important training ground that helped sharpen the sword of my humor interacting with people that was originally forged when I was a child.
It's awesome. It is such a great tangible way to dive into some otherwise either boring or extremely controversial and sensitive subjects.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, all information I think is boring. And that's, I don't know, I might just be a little ADD, but I think how the information is delivered, it can make very inherently boring information so engaging, so entertaining. I look at some of the people who I've learned the most from in my life, and why I've paid attention to the information they share is because they are the messenger who entertains me and who I can connect with. So for teachers, I think how information is delivered is what can create the engagement and the entertaining. But I think information unto itself, it's as boring as a textbook, because honestly, textbooks are just pure information.
Right. Well, and it opens the heart, which is such an important part of this, right? If we can feel our way to what's true for us, that's kind of the secret of it all, isn't it?
Yeah, to me, that's a very important part as well. I think, we open our hearts via this phenomenon called connection. Mm-hmm. And if we have someone who we're watching, be it a video, a speaker, or a friend, but someone who we can actually connect to because they're being themselves, because they're maybe being entertaining, which might be a natural extension of themselves. It's like, oh, now there's someone to connect to. We can't just connect to information. That's like a head phenomenon, a brain phenomenon. But if what I'm saying is half true, then connection happens in the heart. So we need the connection to open our heart. And I dare say we then have a little bit of a richer life because our heart's been opened to a new degree.
Absolutely. So why spirituality? Why is that where you went and brought your humor to become this phenomena that so many people like me enjoy your videos and get a good laugh at what we're going through on our planet right now?
Yeah, I think originally for me it was spirituality because that's where I was losing myself the most. I think humor can be a beautiful spotlight of awareness to help us see the unseen that's happening in our life, see the shadow side that's kind of consuming us that we're otherwise blind to because it's the shadow side. So, in my really early 20s, I embarked on my quote unquote spiritual path, and like a lot of great growth has happened because of it. But like anything in our relative world, there's a downside to it as well. So I had spent about 10 years being very blind to how I was also losing myself while I was also helping myself through my spiritual practices and pursuits. And my videos became a way of me reconciling that, helping bring more balance to me, where I would shine the light on the hiding places where I was losing myself that I was otherwise blind to, because these are very altruistic hiding spots. Like, they're spiritual words that I'm using, spiritual practices that I'm using to hide from myself. So it took, it took my videos to be self-therapy to help me find more and more of me. And then, so I think spirituality was the first step, and probably the second and third step. but also now I am very interested very interested and passionate about using comedy to explore outside of spirituality. I'll always have spirituality. That genre is one of my roots, and I'll always go back to it. But I don't want to be exclusive in it because, one, that would just bore me, and two, I think there's a lot of awareness for us to encounter outside of the genres of spirituality. So using my videos to help people see the unseen in different meaningful areas of life is important to me. And also it's been a nice catalyst of growth for me to accept the challenge of going outside of just what had become a safe playground of the spiritual genres with videos.
It's awesome. And you bring a light to something that I know I do. I'll be going through this quote unquote spiritual awakened life, going through the motions, doing the meditations, doing these different conscious practices. And then a few days or even weeks into that, I realize that I've still gone on unconscious somewhere, that we can be going through the motions and still not be staying connected in the way that we mean to. How do you keep that balance?
Yeah, well, I don't think I keep it. I think I do my best to be aware when I go out of balance. And I think being able to acknowledge some of the paradoxes in life are important in order to stay as balanced as we can be. Otherwise, we get lost in one of the extremes, which is being way out of balance. So I do believe that the path we take to find ourselves will become the path that we lose ourselves on. Unless there's conscious intervention and non-attachment. So, yeah, I do my best to check myself with those reminders of like what works for me will eventually work against me. And because I think our human spirits always want to grow. So when something works for us, we can get attached to it because we believe this has helped me grow. Yeah. And it probably has. And it helps us grow for a month, a year, maybe a few years. And then once it's no longer helping us grow, it becomes an anchor. Yet our belief in our head is still, this helps me grow because it helped me grow 3 years ago when I started it. So that belief, this helps me grow, can have us essentially holding on to a cement block swimming in the ocean. And that's pulling us down while we're believing that it's adding buoyancy to us. So I think the Buddha and other maybe weirdos like that taught non-attachment for a reason. I think becoming as non-attached as possible to that which works for us is ideal, because eventually that which works for us will start working against us because we simply outgrow it. And it's scary to let go of something that's worked for us because we still believe it works for us. And I think we love familiarity as humans. So that's my long, rambling, winded way of saying the paradoxical reminder of something that works for me will work against me eventually. The question is, can I have the conscious awareness to recognize it? That helps me rebalance when I inevitably fall on my face out of balance.
That's a perfect tool. I love that. And I haven't heard it put that way before, that what works to help us find ourselves will ultimately be where we lose ourselves. You are absolutely right. And it's easier for us to see it happening to our friends around us than it is for us to recognize, oh yeah, I'm doing that too, right?
Very much so.
Well, let's talk a little about this exciting new book. You've made yourself the gatekeeper of ultra spirituality with this new book of yours. Tell me what finally led you to go from video to a book.
Yeah, I guess the real answer is publishers started to approach me, and I think they saw the work that I was doing and saw the value in it, respected it, but also publishing is a business. They saw the size of my audience was growing, so they saw it as a good business deal to approach weird redheaded JP with some publishing ideas. And I'm so glad they did, because honestly, the idea of writing a comedy book never crossed my mind. Like, I had always had had the notion like in the back of my mind, yeah, when I'm 60 years old, sitting by a fireplace in some cabin, I'll like write a book on a typewriter. One of those kind of nostalgic images. But like it would be a sincere, serious book. But when they put the idea of like, whoa, writing a comedy book on the table, that was so exciting to me. It just felt like a yes right away. And like my heart was just saying yes, even though my mind's kind of freaking out that I'm saying yes, because my mind's like, well, I don't know if I can write a book, and that seems like a big thing. And, will my comedy transfer from video to a book, and, meeting expectations, just all the scary stuff. But
yeah,
it was definitely a yes. And to me, the journey of writing a book was a win before anybody else ever read the book. The I would call it the depth of creativity, the dimensions of myself that I had to go into to write the book were all new. And it's like I was finding myself writing the book, because it's one thing to write a 5-minute long video. It's awesome. Yeah. I love it. It's a great adventure. And you only go like 5 minutes deep. But like a 250-page book, it's a much more vertical descent into the well of creativity. So that was a beautiful experience. I found inner resources that I didn't know existed. So yeah, and to me, it's very exciting, one, that I was able to put my heart and soul into writing the book and the new challenge, and also. Not that I'm biased, but I love how the book turned out. I think it's funny, it's entertaining, and the comedy of it delivers deeper messages for consideration, in my delusional opinion.
Well, you cover some familiar topics: yoga, being a vegan, mindfulness, following your followee as a guru, plant medicine compulsions, all of that, religion. So as you covered again in written form, these subjects that you've covered a bit in videos and in conversations here and there, did you notice some recurring themes coming through as you'd cover topic after topic? Is there a deep running theme through the book, or is it just a fun poke at the way we are?
Well, I think there's a reoccurring theme, no matter what the chapter topic is or what the video topic is. One of the reoccurring themes is we repress the aspects of our humanity that we have shame about. Mm-hmm. And when we repress it costs us. It creates chaos, because the energy of it gets misdirected. And when it's not expressed directly, then it typically creates chaos. So some of the common aspects of our humanity that we tend to suppress, in my experience, would be our judgmental nature, our self-righteousness nature, and honestly, like our egotistical need for significance. So what I'd like to make all the listeners angry right now, I'd like to say, dear listeners, dear JP, dear Cheryl, you're a human being. You are judgmental. You have an ego. You are egotistical, and it's okay. It really is okay. When we try to make these facts of human life non-existent, that's when it costs us. That's when we try to cover up behind noble-looking hiding spots, and we misdirect these energies in a very unaware way, where we act out self-righteousness, but we don't see it because we just see our mental story that says, I'm being spiritual right now, I'm being a yogi right now, and I can't associate with you because you're not a like-minded person. Mm-hmm. You're going to pull my vibe down, which is me saying, I think you're a flawed human being. I am not judgmental. I think you are a despicable human being. So honestly, I think those helping people see the unseen about themselves, about their human nature, for the purpose of self-acceptance rather than self-rejecting those things, is a reoccurring theme. I think self-acceptance heals all. I think self-rejection creates more pain and chaos in our life, whether it's chaos in our physical pain, psychological pain, destructive patterns in relationships, finances. I think chaos always ensues when we're rejecting our natural human parts. It's easy to accept the parts of us that feel acceptable. But the real challenge is, can we accept what feels unacceptable to us? And it's a challenge that I'm continually on. It's a challenge that I'd like to challenge other people to take up. But I do think when we can become transparent and vulnerable and therefore authentic with even the things about ourselves that we judge to be less than ideal, I think we become a more whole, happier person. None of us is proud of how darn judgmental we are, but, we all poop out of our butts. And we're not really proud of it. But if we don't do it, if we don't acknowledge it, we get really constipated, and that works against us. So I think what makes us more judgmental is when we judge ourselves to be flawed because of our judgmental attitudes. It's like now we're judging ourselves for judging ourselves, and therefore we're covering it up. But when we can just become transparent, raise our hands, say, yep, I too am a delusional human being. I judge people. I judge myself. That's how goofy I am. Then I think we're finding ourselves a little bit more. And I think that's where inner fulfillment comes, when we can embrace ourselves and accept ourselves to a new degree today than compared to what we did yesterday. Life just feels a bit more accepting, compassionate, and friendly, rather than a tumultuous place that, when we're continually navigating the waters via self-rejection.
Yes, that is so true. And the essence of spirituality is about love, loving ourselves, loving each other, getting back to that loving place. But it's so easy to go into fixing ourselves and seeing what we could fix in each other, and that other, a lot less accepting place. And yes, it's natural to judge, but it's really interesting when we do it kind of insidiously without realizing it in the name of spirituality, right?
100% for sure. Insidious is a great word for it. It's like the invisible just killer who's amongst us. Yeah. It's like, it's so easy to be blind when we have altruistic words to disguise our just ferocious mindsets that are there. Like, humans, we're like savage primates. Like we're angels, but we're also savage primates. Yes. With sharp teeth.
All in one body, trying to have this interesting experience. It really is a trip. And we wonder why we feel conflicted at times. And we do have this duality living within it. I don't even like to call it a duality anymore. It's a spectrum. And where are we at in the spectrum from moment to moment based on,
for sure,
whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. We're all there. We're angel and we're savage primates. And I love the image of the spectrum. Like, we are all of it. But the question is, like, where on the spectrum are we, like, expressing ourselves from? Where are we coming from? And of course, I think we're going to oscillate here and there on the spectrum. But I think part of life wants us to realize we are all of it. We can't deny the aspects of the spectrum of self that we don't like, just because we pretend we're not it. The whole left half of the spectrum, yep, that's not me. Pretending that it's not us doesn't mean it's not us. It just means we're in denial of at least half of ourselves.
Yeah. And then at the same time, seeking unconditional love and wondering why we can't get there.
What's wrong with the world? Why won't it unconditionally love me? Here's this world and the people around us, the greatest, most accurate mirror of self. So accurate that it's frustrating. So accurate that it's hard to see what the mirror is reflecting, because it always shows us what we are, not what we want to be.
Yes, exactly. Well, what a great opportunity for me to ask you about anything you'd like to tell us about what it's like to be in a conscious relationship too, because I've seen on your social media thread that you share with your lady. And so I'd love to ask you how that's also playing out for you in a path of consciousness.
Yeah, we sit around all day speaking in light tones of voices while caressing each other's cheeks with rose petals. It's perfect.
I think that's what people think it's like sometimes.
What else
too.
would it be? No, it's the spectrum, as you mentioned, and And it's great. I'll share details in a second, but I also want to be more real instead of just pretending to be glorious. Much like the spectrum we just talked about. Yeah, there's the whole spectrum. So, yeah, the great blessing about my beautiful lady is I get to have the experience of learning about who she is. The mystery of her is who I'm invested in being in a relationship with, rather than trying to make her into the person that I want her to be, which would be essentially rejecting who she is while I'm trying to accept who she isn't. Like, good luck. And I wonder why all my past relationships have failed.
Wow.
Note to self. So
Yeah.
and I think what makes any relationship conscious, it's not the absence of the mud. It's not the absence of conflict.
Right.
It's the presence of an ongoing communication, not just communicating about the comfy stuff, but communicating openly about feelings. When I feel emotionally charged, upset in past relationships, I would repress that because I'm afraid, well, if I'm upset, then my partner isn't going to love me. I won't be accepted. And therefore me being upset will destroy the relationship. But now I've learned me repressing it will destroy the relationship. So I've got to be honest. I've got to be open with my communication. And to me, communication is an absolutely ongoing process. It's like breathing.
Yes.
We can't take a few amazing breaths right now and expect that that's going to perpetuate the relationship we have with life for the rest of our life. Otherwise, our life would be very short. So much like we got to keep breathing, I think communication is the respiration of a relationship. And again, it's not just communicating about the comfy, convenient stuff. It's communicating about everything. We need to become, for a conscious relationship, a curious student about who our partner is.
Yes.
Let me learn about all of you, not just the glorious parts. And we need to be vulnerable enough to let our partner be the curious student about us. I think there's something inside all of us, certainly me, that says, if you knew who I really was, you could never love me. So I've got to betray that fear-based programming inside of me that, it feels powerful, but I got to really realize, if you knew who I really was, then you can actually love me. But if you never knew who I really am, then you can never love me. So I have to really, really betray that old programming. And then, Cheryl, as I'm, rambling here, but I won't even apologize for it. I would also say playfulness is a very important ingredient of a conscious relationship. Couples who laugh together stay together. It sort of rhymes, so of course it has to be true. So communication, playfulness, vulnerability, which I think is a dimension of communication. We've got to be, to the degree that we laugh together, we've got to be open to crying together that much. And then I would also dare say the last, the fourth element of the Holy Trinity, which I realize isn't a Trinity, but it just sounds more conscious if we pretend this is a Trinity. So the fourth part of the Holy Trinity, if we have communication, playfulness, vulnerability, it would be sexuality. I do feel that's a beautiful landscape of connection that oftentimes is really discounted in unconscious relationships, because sexuality becomes a mechanism of control rather than surrender. It might be a mechanism, something that we associate more heavily with shame, and therefore try to control our partner or control ourselves with it, either by withholding it or through using sex as a way of controlling rather than surrendering to them. And so for me, consciously walking with those four elements of the Holy Trinity in a relationship is important. And I think with those four elements, it means we're constantly working on it. A lot of people who are maybe either fitness fanatics or self-growth fanatics, they'd say I'm constantly working on my body through nutrition and exercise. Or self-growth fanatics, yeah, I'm constantly working on my mind and heart through healing and growth strategies, and maybe someone's doing all of that. Awesome. Well, we can realize our body will break down unless we're constantly working on it. Much like our car will break down if we never attend to it, if we never put gas in it, though our cars we can neglect longer. But I think it's ridiculous how it's like almost normal for people to be in a relationship and working on the relationship isn't even like in the zeitgeist of their relationship.
Yeah.
It's like we realize if someone's not mindful of their eating and exercise, we know that present day, it will be normal for that person to get very unhealthy. And I think the same thing happens to our relationship. It gets very unhealthy because we just feed it junk food by default if we're not consciously working on nurturing it. And I would dare say a relationship is probably one of the most potentially valuable experiences we can ever have in life. And the idea of not paying attention to it and working on it and nurturing it and fertilizing it seems a little ridiculous. Yet, wow, I can't count how many past relationships I've had where it's like, yeah, let's put this thing on cruise control and we'll be good. So, no.
Yes.
It's got to be an ongoing conscious endeavor. Otherwise, it's probably not a conscious relationship.
Well, and relationships are the most fertile ground for our growth and development. So I completely agree with you. I love some of the analogies you use there. That was great and I think one of the greatest relationship junk foods is the comparison thing. And we see it a lot in social media. Oh, well, how are they doing? And look at what they're doing. And what do they think of this? And I mean, we really have to get out of that and be true to ourselves. And that is the journey as a couple and as an individual, right?
For sure. That comparison game, especially like the injustice of doing it on social media, like no one, including me, puts 100% of their relationship online. Like, it's like, yep. I am guilty of like, here's a happy, loving picture of me and my lady with our arms around each other in front of a waterfall. It was a great experience, but it's not our only experience by any stretch of the imagination. So, I think a relationship is best looked at to be a discovery where it's like, okay, dear partner, we get to discover what is our relationship rather than comparing it to other people's relationships or fictional relationships as portrayed by social media. I think our relationships deserve that kind of respect where it's a process of discovery, not comparison or expectation that it should be the way someone else's relationship is.
I absolutely agree with you. This is so fun. And it was fun to watch your latest video before we got on the call about minimalism. And you want to share a bit about what inspired that?
Yeah, so a neighbor of mine back in Charleston, South Carolina, she has a YouTube channel. And so she's always happy if I have like little video parts where I need, someone. She's like, I'm always happy to do that. So she was over helping me with a video. I believe it was called If Doctors Acted Like Yogis. And during that video, she gave me the suggestion about doing a video on minimalism. She's like, yeah, I'm reading about it. I love it. And like, I've always been a minimalist myself. I haven't really studied it, but I've always been a minimalist. I'm like, yeah, I like that idea. And it's also like minimalism is a trendy thing. So just like, the idea felt inspiring to me, so I went with it, and I had a lot of fun with it. Where taking the idea of minimalism to a little bit of an exaggerated degree, but I think
like no pants, kind of extreme.
Yes. No pants, like that's just too much clutter. And then also the idea of having ridiculous rationalizations expressed in a satirical way for why minimalism. I think that was very entertaining for myself. So, usually the video ideas that resonate for me that I feel inspired by are the video ideas that are active in my life. I'm very much living in the spiritual world, and I'm practicing minimalism. So things that are true to me in my life, I get excited about with videos because it means I have something to learn. I have something to find a way to take myself less seriously about. It's a way, okay, now I have something another area to shine the light of awareness on, where am I losing myself a little bit here in the genre of minimalism in my life. So
right.
I get excited about that.
If these topics are actually true to your life, it brings me to my next question. I have personally done a couple of trips to Peru, found a lot of healing with ayahuasca. It's been a powerful teacher for me. You've covered ayahuasca a couple of times. And so I'm just curious where your inspiration for that came from and where your true feelings lie around that.
Yeah. So I've done 2 videos that involve ayahuasca. The first one was done, I think, over 2 years ago. It's called Using Ayahuasca.
Right.
And then the second one was probably a couple months ago called If Trump Drank Ayahuasca.
Yes.
So there's 2 very different inspirations for those 2 videos. The first video, Using Ayahuasca, what inspired that was when I was living in Southern California for 10 years, there's a lot of what I would call trendy plant medicine use. And there's also a culture of what I would call predatory shamanism.
Yes.
And not true shamanism, not real shamans, but predatory shamanism, where people are either preying on other people psychologically. I want to have a sense of power over you because I have this powerful substance. Mm-hmm. And if I can entice you to want it from me, then I feel like you want something from me. I feel valuable to you. And it's a very predatory energy, and is very psychologically predatory. Yes. And then, unfortunately, I wish this wasn't true, but it's incredibly true. There's people that I had been exposed to who are sexually taking advantage of people. I mean, just call a spade, sexually assaulting people while they are under the influence of different psychedelics, and they're essentially incapacitated. So I was seeing this going on. I'm like, this is not only not spiritual, this is a felony. Yeah. Why is nobody talking about this? So it was very much a family secret, if you will. Very much the same sense of secrecy was at play that allowed the Catholic Church priest to get away with pedophilia for years. There's this thing that says, well, this is like, there's spiritual stuff going on, so I would be wrong to shine the light on the sexual assaulting going on. Wow. And I'm just, pardon my pretend language here, but F that. Like, I care about people. I don't care about upholding some kind of culture that's constructed out of predatory behavior. No. In fact, those cultures need to be destroyed. So I wanted to shine the light on the predatory aspects of it. So honestly, caring about people who can be taken advantage of in what is a very seductive community, because it offers the promise of spiritual connection. Right. And I care too much about people to let that be swept under the rug. So with that said, Cheryl, I have a lot of respect for plant medicines as a powerful gateway to genuine spiritual connection, while also, like, check yourself before you wreck yourself, realizing that wherever humans go, there will be human egos with their human ego agenda. So, to me, what's more important than plant medicine use is who are you using it with? Yes. Who is your guide? Yes. Do you even have a guide, or are you into convenient shamanism? My girlfriend, for instance, she does a lot of work with ayahuasca, and I've grown to have a lot of respect for the people that she works with. And I've grown to have a lot of disrespect for people who call themselves shaman, or maybe they're real shaman. Really, all you have to do to become a shaman nowadays is call yourself a shaman. But I've grown to have a lot of disrespect for anybody who takes advantage of anybody else. And I also realize that, much like when I lose myself, people who administer psychedelics and plant medicines, they may be completely blind to how they are taking advantage of people. So,
Yes.
Ignorance is not an excuse here. So with that said, my personal experimentation, I've used, actually it's been about 10 years ago at this point, Hannah, I think 3 times each, DMT and LSD. Yet to use ayahuasca myself. I'm incredibly curious about it, but to me, the curiosity about it isn't reason enough to partake in a ceremony. I need to be, if and when my heart calls me,
Yes.
wonderful. But to me, curiosity is it's like a lower level of consciousness to be coming from.
Right.
And I also want to respect that just because something sacred is used doesn't mean you're using it in a sacred way. I think if our heart calls us and we're working with people who are truly respectable, not just like, well, I found this person and it's convenient for my ayahuasca tourism agenda. It doesn't mean we're using the substance in a sacred way. So I want to be very aligned with it if and when I have my personal experience with ayahuasca.
Those are all beautiful points, very important points. And we've seen a lot of that. I've been on this path for about 5 years now with the plant medicine, and we have seen a lot of those different things happen. We've seen powerful healing and we've seen powerful abuse. And it seems like there's charlatans in any path, right? And so it's definitely
Sure.
seeking guidance about who to work with and when, and following your heart. Great, great guidance.
Yeah. And just last thing on that, I think we're really in an immature psychological mindset, and I don't mean immature in a bad way, just like it's a new thing for us.
Yes.
So we're in like an adolescent mindset in our Western culture when it comes to working with plant medicines. And part of that immature phase we're in our growth and development with it is there's a lot of naivety. Just like you go to any high school and you'll find like everybody's naive. Like, of course, they haven't had the life experience. So I think that's part of the growing pains where eventually our naiveness will be replaced with awareness.
Yeah.
But when we're the naive people walking into a new territory that has a lot of potential for good, we can be unaware that there can be very devious mindsets. And very predatory people around. And that's part of naivety. And I think that's important to just raise awareness around.
Absolutely. And thank you for doing so. Well, we've talked a little about your book, which I know everybody's going to get a copy of, How to Be Ultra Spiritual, so they can figure that out for themselves, because it's so important that we all get ultra spiritual.
Absolutely.
What's next for you?
That's a great question. What's next for me is, I think a couple things. Re-engaging with my videos in a new way, a deeper way, is important to me. The past, honestly, 6 months, probably a year, to be honest with you, it's like I've had to fight for time to do videos. And right now I'm in Costa Rica for 2 months, and I'm really looking, though I'm got plenty of work going on, I'm really looking forward to prioritizing video creation, doing new topics, going into new territory that I haven't been in with videos. So I'm really looking forward to the creative dance here over the next couple months. And then a little bit later this year, there will be a more full-on comedy tour that I'll be taking part in. And I love working with live audiences. So that's going to be very exciting for me. It's going to be a new challenge for me. Yet I think a very worthy one that I'll really enjoy. I think I'll really get a lot of benefit from, and hopefully deliver some good benefit, upliftment, and laughs for people as well.
That sounds wonderful. And as we visited before the show, we are having this show from the Gulf Coast region of Texas. I know you've been to Texas, but not to our area. So we'd love to help you come here too. We'd love to have you close by for a change.
Oh, wonderful. I'd love to visit. That'd be awesome. Texas is my favorite country within the U.S. I have to say real quick, It was last week. I was in Austin, Texas, doing an event, a book event. And during book events, I'm doing some stand-up comedy and then stand-up authenticity, and just being playful with the Austin crowd. I said something along the lines of, I realize everybody in Austin, you all think that you're somehow separate from the rest of Texas. Like Austin behaves as though, we're not a part of Texas. And I said, and Texas thinks it's not a part of the U.S. So you thinking that you're separate from Texas makes you just like Texas. So I had fun dancing with the Austinites and the Texas crowd.
That is perfect. I love it. Well, that explains all the birds that I've been hearing. I just love South America. So I soak some of that up for me too while you're down there.
Happy to.
Yeah. So I like to end my shows by asking my guests if they have a parting thought. So do you have a parting thought you'd like to leave us with today?
Yeah, I think curiosity enlivens the cat, and I think a sense of certainty is truly what kills the cat. So I would dare say we can all open our minds and, more importantly, our hearts to more fulfillment and more discovery, more growth, more connection when we can come from a place of curiosity and divorce our delusional senses of certainty that probably have zero correlation to truth and just correlation to our need to feel safe and in control. So if we can leave the gravity of the fear-based mindset that facilitates a sense of certainty and embrace something that I think serves us better, which is a curious mindset, then I dare say we're enriching our lives.
Absolutely. Playfully curious even, right?
Absolutely.
Online.
That's an upgrade.
Yes, it is. Online at awakenwithjp.com. JP, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, you're incredibly welcome, Cheryl. I appreciate you having me on your show.
This was a lot of fun. Thank you, and have a great time down there. Would you like to be a guest on Exploring Possibilities? Drop me a note at info@journeyofpossibilities.com. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Exploring Possibilities.